Today I came here for my first CBSE class 12 biology. We will start with the chapter sexual reproduction in flowering plants. We will start with this. We all know that flower is actually the part that is actually the structure. If we see it properly, then actually it gives joy and gives us also scents, perfumes, as we see over. So flower, if we see the diversity of structure, that is the inflorescence, flower, floral parts, so amazing range of adaptation to ensure formation of end product of the sexual reproduction. If we see the morphology, structure and the process of sexual reproduction of flowering plant, if we see, then first starts with the flower, a fascinating organ of angiosperm. We all know that human beings have the intimate relationship with the flower. We all know there is a immemorial. Flowers of the aesthetic, ornamental value and also religious, cultural value it have. But lastly, flowers ornamental value are commonly cultivated at homes, gardens. We all saw this one. So in case of this chapter, flowers actually, if we see the fertilization, structure and the events, actual flower seen on a plant, that this of plant is going flower to taken place. The form of floral buds and the flower. The flower is male and female reproductive structure. We all know dendroecium and gynoecium that differentiate and develop. If we see that the structure properly, then first starts with the stamen. That you all know that the parts, that is the male part actually, that is androecium, is actually with two parts. One is filament, another is anther. That is called the stamen, long and slender stalk, that is filament, and a sac-like bilobed structure, that is anther. And the proximal end of the filament is attached to the thalamus of the petal. And the side, if we see, they appreciate the large variation. If we see careful observation of each of the stamen under dissecting microscope, making a neat diagram. Then typical angiosperm have bilobed, with each lobe having two theca, that is diothecas actually, often longitudinal groove. Transverse section, if we see that bilobe mature, and the anther is four headed, consisting of four microsporangia located on the corner, two of each tube. The microsporangia develop further and become pollen sac, and from here actually pollen comes out. If we see the microsporangia, properly, then in transverse section, typical microsporangia appears near circular in outline, joint surrounded by four wall layer, and that epidermis, endothecium, middle layers, and also one tapetum. That is this is the part, that is wall layer, perform function of protection and help in this descent of the anther to release the pollen. And the innermost wall is the tapetum, and nourishes the developing pollen grains, and cells of tapetum possess cytoplasm, generally have more than one nucleus it have. When the anther is young, that is group of compactly arranged homogeneous cells called the sporogenous tissue, and occupies the center of the microsporangia. What is microsporangia? As the anther develop, the cell of sporogenous tissue undergo meiotic division and to form microspore tetrad. That is four চারটে একসঙ্গে actually থাকে, that is four tetrad, that actually ploidy level. If we see and as each of the cell sporogenous tissue is capable of giving rise to a new individual, to a microspore tetrad actually. Each one of potential pollen of microspore mother cell, PMC, that is called pollen mother cell যাকে আমরা বলি. The process of formation of microspore from a pollen mother cell through meiosis is called microsporogenesis. That is called microsporogenesis. The microspore, as they are formed, arranged in a cluster of four cells, the microspore tetrad, and the anther mature and dehydrate, and this microspore dissociate to form each other and develop the pollen grains. From each one of it pollen grains comes out, and inside the microsporangia several thousand of microspore or pollen grains are formed that are released of the dehiscence of anther. What is pollen grain? The pollen grain represents the male gametophyte. If you touch the open anther, that is a hibiscus flower, then a deposition of yellowish powdery substance comes out in your finger. That is sprinkle that this grain drop of water, taken a glass slide, observe under the microscope. If we see, then microscope actually, if we see this one, that the pollen grains are generally spherical, measuring about 25 to 50 micrometer diameter, and prominent two-layered wall. That hard layer is called exine, and the inner layer is called that is exine, and outer layer is nexine. That is the most resistant organic material known and withstand high temperature, strong acid, alkali, no enzymes actually. And the pollen grain exine has prominent aperture called the germ pores, and the sporopollenin is absent. Where the sporopollenin is absent, actually exine is made up of sporopollenin. And this exine exhibit a fascinating array of patterns. Different patterns should be there, design should be there. And second part is actually inner part, that is called intine, that is thin continuous layer made up of mainly mature content 2 cells, vegetative cell and generative cell it have. That is, the vegetative cell is bigger and abundant food reserve and a large irregularly shaped nucleus, whereas generative cell, the small, floats the on the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. It's spindle shape, actually dense cytoplasm and a nucleus. If we see it was 60% of angiosperm pollen grains are said 2 cell stage, and remaining species generative cell divides meiotically, and actually to give 2 male gametes pollen grains, that is a 3 cell stage. Pollen grains, some species have severe allergy and bronchial affection. Some pollen grains chronic respiratory disorder, asthma, bronchitis maybe. This is sometimes actually called the occurrence of causes pollen energy. That is, the pollen grains nutrients that become few fashion here's the pollen tablets as a food supplement. Actually it have performance athletes, some race horses actually for use this one. Pollen grains have a land of stigma before the loss of viability being fertilization. If it move on to the stigma, then actually it give the fertilization. In some cereals or rice which pollen grains have low viability within 30 minutes of the release, whereas in case of Rosaceae, Leguminaceae, Solanaceae, they are maintained viability for months. But a strong semen sperm animal, including human, artificial insemination, there is nitrogen minus 196 degree. It is actually such stored pollen grains, actually pollen bank for further use, for future use, similar to seed banks and crop breeding program. So today up to that.